Your page should look just like mine, so make sure that you look inside your interactive student notebook and look at make sure the same pictures that are on the video are all the same pictures that are on your page. The top of your page should read why the colonists want something different. If you need some assistance in finding the correct page, please raise your hand or ask somebody next to you. You can also look at the blackboard. There should be a page number that you can reference to make sure you're on the right page. We are starting our Causes of the American Revolution, and we are going to start with a couple of reasons why the colonists would want to start a war with England. We are going to be writing in this first box right here, so please make sure that you are writing in this first box, the box that is located underneath the ship, underneath the blue arrow, this very first box. The main goal for England is to increase money in the country's treasury through a favorable balance of trade. This means that they want more exports than imports. For example, they want to export more textiles or clothing or material. How they make money is making money off of the exports. England used raw materials, which are resources, from colonies to make their own products. Staying in that same box, we're going to add Navigation Acts. Navigation Acts was when England put restrictions on colonies that would benefit England. So remember when we did our activity in the classroom where the cotton was going from the colonies into into England, and then England was exporting material or textiles to Africa. They could not pass up England. They had to make sure that they stopped in England first because that would benefit England. That's part of the Navigation Acts. You have to make sure that the money is going to the king in England. The next box that we're going to be writing in is the one right underneath where we were writing. It's next to the building that looks like the Capitol. Another reason why the colonists want something different than having to be controlled by Mother England is because they want a free enterprise. Free enterprise basically means you get to do business with whoever you want to. If you want to sell your cotton to Africa or to Spain or France, then Mother England can't do anything about it. That's what free enterprise is about. Another word for free enterprise is called capitalism. The reason why colonists would want a free enterprise or capitalist system is because they have the opportunity for competition. If you want to sell your cotton at a certain price, and then another person wants to sell their cotton at the same price or maybe a little cheaper, so that we can add some type of competition, then that's available in the free enterprise system. In the system that was controlled by the king, the mercantilism, they had to all sell their cotton or send their cotton over to the king. So they weren't allowed to really set a price for their cotton. Another reason is because the property can be owned by individuals. Instead of the king controlling the property and owning the property and saying the property is theirs, the property, your farmland or your house, is owned by you. The king cannot come in and take it from you. And the third reason is because it gives you the opportunity to make a profit. If you want to sell your cotton for $5 and it only costs you $1 to farm it and to harvest it, then that means you just made a profit of $4. And that $4 goes to you instead of the king. This is a free enterprise or capitalism system. You have competition, property is owned by individuals, and you're also allowed to make a profit. The next area that we're going to be writing in is going to be the one that is next to the person that's covering his eyes. This is the box we will be writing in next. We've talked about this term before, but now we're going to really explain what salutary neglect is. Salutary neglect is when Britain did not enforce all of their laws and colonists became used to doing things on their own. So, for example, the colonists were supposed to do what the king and parliament is the are the people who make the laws in England. Their colonists in America are supposed to follow their rules, but not all of them are enforced. Britain did not enforce all of their laws, and the colonists just became used to doing things on their own. So they just did what they wanted to do. There wasn't anybody really looking over them or watching them very closely. This is called salutary neglect. So another reason other than salutary neglect why the colonists decided that they could possibly start challenging authority and making their own decisions is there were two movements in the colonies. The first one was called the Enlightenment movement. And this movement was about reasonings. It was science and it was about science based and it was about um, thinking about something different than what the king is telling you to do. Another movement was called the Great Awakening, and this was a religious movement. And people would come out to these revivals where basically it was a huge, like a tent, and the preachers would be there talking about God and about religion and about how you should start treating one another and listening to one another instead of just following what the king, the Church of England, would tell you. So colonists began to think that they were equals and to challenge and began to challenge authority. No longer was it that you're rich, you're poor, you're a part of the king's group. It's now we're all equals and we can all challenge authority together. We don't have to listen to what the king is telling us to do. Next, we're going to be writing next to in the rectangle next to the crown. There's some actions of the king and the parliament. The king is a tyrant. He practices tyranny. He's a dictator. What he says goes. And so these are the actions of the king, which is tyranny, and parliament. Parliament and the king, they were not making the colonists very happy because they were passing laws. Laws were passed without colonial involvement, and this was called taxation without representation. They did not ask the colonists to come over to England and to sit in Parliament and talk about what kind of taxes they felt were okay for them to pay. They were just told that these are the taxes that you need to pay for, and the taxes were going to be going to whatever the king and parliament wanted it to go to. They had no choice in the matter. This was taxation without representation. These laws that were passed by parliament and the king, the law of taxation without representation, these angered the colonists. So laws were passed that angered the colonists. This is the start or some of the causes of the American Revolution. Another reason why the colonists kind of wanted to do their own thing was because they were so far away from England. England was all the way in Europe. You had to get on a boat and travel at least a couple of weeks to a month, maybe even a month and a half to get all the way to the colonies. And so it was just so far. Anything that they did over here, anything that they did in the colonies, just seemed like a completely different world than over in Europe. So the distance between England and the colonies was a major factor in the colonists wanting to do their own thing. People felt that it made sense to break away from England because they could govern themselves and England was an ocean away.